Legacy of a King, a Legacy Series novel by Charlene Sponsel. Chapter 9, Accomplishment of a Goal. 62nd day of summer 448. To my dismay, the cycle passed quickly, and Cam's entitlement ceremony was upon us. It wasn't the grand occasion Farin's was, but a quieter affair, like Kesma's, because he, too, was engaged by contract. I examined myself in the mirror, pondering whether I was complete. Considering Telly's substantial height, I hoped I would grow taller, but the only likely changes remaining were the darkening of my shading and highlights. I donned a Vinland-style ensemble to combat the sweltering heat of summer and longed for the coolness of home. Home. The word sounded foreign. I would have finished my apprenticeship and be working under a prestigious designer. I might have been engaged. You are engaged, I corrected my reflection. Lili, the king has requested you see him before the ceremony, Mia said. There was no point in delaying, so I rushed next door to Telly's drawing room. You asked to see me, I said from the open doorway. Come in, he said, as his manservant tried to finish dressing him. He excused him so we could be alone, and I laced his tunic for him, my hands brushing over firm muscle. How are you? He asked, his eyes soft and bright. You seem distracted of late. I wanted to lean against his solid form and let my worries melt away. How long had it been since someone held me? I'm all right, I said, unable to tear my gaze from the clean lines of his recently shaved face. Soap and linen hung around him, and I had to bite my lip to keep from uttering something stupid, like how fine he looked. He reached out and straightened cloth, caught beneath my shoulder strap, his fingers grazing bare skin. Your father will not be attending today? I swayed my head. I'd been waiting a cycle to see him. When I heard he wasn't coming, my emotions took a downward spiral. You look divine. His cheeks lifted. It wasn't a smile. He had caught himself at the last moment, but I returned it anyway. He tipped my chin up. It is his loss. I will see you after the procession. Large white tents for relief from the beating sun filled the courtyard and gardens. I longed to dip my feet in the lake and let the current pull the heat from me. Ilioda of Wesselder, ward of Sitak Major, Elderman of Majorca, the herald announced me. I stepped outside, and heat stung my fair skin. Elix wrote he would attend, and Tally invited him to stay at the castle, but I had yet to see him. Given our tumultuous relationship, it surprised me how keen I was on it. But when I spotted him, he avoided meeting my gaze for what remained of the introductions, leaving me to make small talk with strangers until Tilly presented Cam. Tilly placed a twisted gold circlet on his son's bowed head, and a cheer came from the entitled crowd. Kamek, Earl of Liat, Tally announced. Cam stepped off the stage, built in the dooryard, and offered his arm to his intended, Sibica, Duchess of Sim. She was a cute, gangling plains girl, with blonde hair not yet highlighted, hanging in waves from a high knot. Her flawless tanned skin had muted shading, indicating she had begun to mature at a mere 8 cycles old. She had arrived in an elegant carriage pulled by smooth gold horses, gifts for Cam. Her father wasn't only the Duke, but the great horsemaster of Sim Forest, and unlike most, plainsmen's daughters didn't inherit. The titleship would pass to Cam. He winked as he passed me with a wide grin, dimples pitting his cheeks. I wanted to cry. Music began, and couples joined Cam and Sibica for a dance. A man with red hair stood across the courtyard. As West Forester guests were few, I walked up behind him. Elix? He jerked at my voice, spilling wine onto his sleeve, and glared at me as if it were my fault. Lili. Aren't you going to ask me to dance? My little sister, he explained to the group and grabbed my arm above the elbow hard enough I was sure it would bruise, dragging me to the courtyard filled with dancing couples. I rubbed my arm where he released it. Did you plan to avoid me the entire visit? Maybe. He clenched my hand as the dance began. How is father? Fine. He didn't want to come? He has better things to do. His words stung, but I didn't want him to know. Have you begun courting? How is it any business of yours? Because I care. Because you are my brother. I came here for you. And that was such a hardship. I tore my hand away. Sorry I asked. I left him standing alone. As usual, he didn't understand what he was talking about. Sitek blocked my exit, and I blinked away tears to find Belia shooting icy stares in my direction. Ignore her, he instructed. When you dance with Tali, ignore the crowd and Belia. Easy for him to say. Tali asked to dance with me? You ask him. He is by the tables. But do you see the crowd of women surrounding him? This is why you are here. Now do as you are told. I steadied my nerves, rehearsing how I would ask, and approached the women fawning over him, but they wouldn't let me through. I was about to relinquish the effort when they parted like the sea until he extended his hand to me. The surrounding guests blurred out of focus as I accepted his offer. He twirled me around the floor, and I forgot the trouble with my father and Elix about Belia's callousness and Sitek's demands. I wanted to break our frame and fall into his arms. You and Cam look like brothers up there, I said. Except Tali had the markings of a man. His shoulders were broad, his arms solid, and I found his confidence compelling. You are an unlikely source of acclaim in that department. Why is that? You are the prettiest girl here. It is helpful that as Sitek's ward, the old sovereignty does not see you as a political threat. Heat crept up my neck. I'm hardly the prettiest. You correct a king? I dipped my chin, waiting for my face to cool, but gazed at him from behind my lashes. Ilanji loves you for your innocence and your genuine enjoyment of every experience. You are enchanting. My throat went dry as we turned and around, and Telly's eyes didn't leave me. Do you see how they watch you? Every man here is in love with you tonight. Every man? My body was hot, and I worried I would sweat through my gloves. The music ended, but I couldn't move, and Tali appeared in no hurry to let me go. May I? Cam asked, not waiting for a reply before pulling me into his arms. How had he known the desperate need I was in? My eyes unfocused. You all right, Red? I hardly know. Tilly watched us from the edge of the courtyard. I think your father said he loves me. That's the goal, isn't it? I didn't respond, perplexed by my reaction because he was correct. If someone told me 2 cycles ago I would be dancing with you now, I wouldn't have believed them, he said, distracting me. Was I such an objectionable prospect? He leaned in and murmured in my ear. I knew you would be stunning. Who could resist such temptation? You manage. I'm special, immune to your charms, he said, lifting his brows. You are too busy charming servants. He frowned. What do you mean? It was the first time all day that dimples hadn't adorned his cheeks, an attribute that fooled someone who didn't know him into believing him innocent. Nothing. I'm sorry. I shouldn't have mentioned it. Did Mia say something? She didn't tell me it was you. What did she expect? I was engaged. My mother had died. Yes, we kissed, but you kissed her? Yes, he groaned at having made such a grievous error. That was more than she told you. I was young. I didn't comprehend the commitment it implied. She initiated it, aware it would bring on the change. What was it like? I hid my face as heat spread across it at the impropriety of my impetuous question. Red? His mouth curled into a sly smile. I laughed and leaned my forehead on his shoulder. He joined in without hesitation, and we fled the dancing couples in a fit of giggles. Cam was not his father, despite the similar appearance. He was shorter and toned. What he lacked in confidence, he masked with bravado. He was quick to laugh, and those dimples. Could I blame Mia? We walked toward Kesma, my hand on his arm. I focused on the new signet ring adorning his left index finger. Have you decided what you will do? No. My lighthearted mood disappeared upon his reply. I was glad I didn't ask him while we were dancing. I would have had to look him in the eye and pretend him leaving was only a daunting task. "Cam," his friends called, and he left me with Kesma while he cavorted with his friends. At sunset, candles were lit, and the crowd moved inside. Music continued, but soon the family was seeing guests to carriages and rooms. One by one, visitors retired until I stood alone in the dining hall, waiting for the cook to make last-minute accommodations. I blew out the candles, and the fireplace warmed my back as a slow-moving shadow crept across the wall and towered above me.